And so I believe sellers should have the right to choose when, where, and how they market their homes. It's their home, it's not our home. I believe if I am a real estate agent, you're my seller. My fiduciary and statutory duty is to you, not to someone else's buyer. It's to you, not to Zillow. It's to you. And there are some conflicts, right? Days on market and price drop history is the killer of value. And if a seller doesn't want that on their listing, they should be able to not have their listing.
My guests today are two of the most influential and interesting voices in real estate. Robert Reffkin is the chairman and CEO of Compass International Holdings, and Thad Wong is the co-CEO of At Properties and Christie's International Real Estate. 2 weeks ago, Robert visited us here in Chicago, the city that suddenly has the attention of our entire industry. If you haven't seen the headlines, MRED, our local MLS, cut its listing feed to Zillow.com after Zillow continued to block certain active listings from its websites. Days later, the feed was reestablished, but a federal judge denied Zillow's request to continue banning listings, including those marketed through MRED's private listing network. As we wait to see how it'll all unfold, I'm really excited to have Robert and Thad here to help us understand what's at stake and what it really means for agents and their clients. Stick around for Rapid Fire, where we get to know Robert better. From first impressions of At Properties to marathon mishaps and making time for family. So let's dive in. Robert Reffkin and Thad Wong, thank you so much for being a part of Corr Values today. I am excited for this conversation. Hopefully it won't go too far off the rails because we only have about 45 minutes. But welcome, guys.
Welcome.
It's good to be here.
I'm glad to be here. I didn't think I realized how you're playing on the word core values. I love that.
Yes.
That's great.
Yes. My husband said, where do I get any credit or benefit from it since it's his last name? And I told him, you're lucky I'm staying married to you. So that's how we've got it. All right, let's jump in because we've got a lot to talk about right now. So Robert, let's start with you. You came to Chicago 2 weeks ago and brought agents from 4 different brands together in an inspirational moment that reminded us real estate is one of the only professions where success depends on collaboration as much as it does competition. And in your presentation, you started with a line that I will tell you stuck for a lot of agents, and that was, I don't want to destroy the MLS, I want to restore the MLS. What do you mean by that? Help us understand why that, in my mind, is such a powerful statement.
So I support mandatory submission for data purposes so that the MLS is a source of truth for comps. I support mandatory cooperation. So if there's a publicly marketed listing, it must be in the MLS for all agents across brokerage firms to be able to see for their buyers. What I don't support is being forced to give our data and our clients' data to third-party portals and AI companies. I just don't support that. The original MLS between 1950 through 2008 never forced us to give our data to these third-party companies. And so I want to restore the MLS to what it was. The original MLS was a place where I, as an agent, with a listing, I could put a listing in the MLS, and agents that have buyers would then be able to search it, and then the agent can share with the buyers. That was it, agent to agent. And that is the model that the MLS should be able to provide us that would help our company the best, and our agents and our sellers. It's not saying that they don't give us the option to syndicate to third-party portals, but give us an option to share our listings with agents.
So Robert, that's a great point, and having the MLSs has been an opportunity for agents to share information related to home listings and inventory. This is also really a conversation about data, though, right? And this is the fact that we as agents have data, but more importantly, clients have information about their houses that is data. And it's really talking about who controls that and when it's distributed. Would you agree?
I agree. I think agents are being put in a situation too often where they're the cheapest content creators in the world. In fact, they have to pay someone to take their content from them. And what happened in Chicago, a lot of the broker owners, I don't think they realize when they gave their data directly to Zillow, Zillow now owns that data. They own all the historical data. They own the photos. They have the ability to license and sublicense and sell it for in perpetuity. When you give it through the MLS protects your data.
Mm-hmm. And so let's talk a little bit deeper about people out there that maybe don't really understand what the PLN is, which is was created by MRED, which is our Midwest Real Estate Data, MLS. And it's been a pretty intense and amazing opportunity. And it's actually been most utilized by agents. Over 60% of them use the PLN as a way to search and find properties and list properties for their agents. Thad, can you tell us, or for those that don't understand what the PLN is, can you articulate what it is and how you see it being an incredible benefit?
Yes, and if you've been selling as long as I have, or half as long as I have, I would say if you want to conceptualize in your mind, the easiest way to think about it is the PLN is the MLS pre-portal. That's all it is. And going back to the previous statement, I think a lot of brokerages forget that the MLS is in support of agents and works on behalf of agents. So the PLN, you nailed it, Amy, 60+%. I mean, how many of our agents really use a specific tool over 60%? If you get 35%, 40%, you feel like you have very strong adoption from an obligation tool. And so the PLN getting 65 is telling you that consumers and agents are using a resource provided by our MLS to compete in the market. And it is one of the best resources I have seen. The only thing I'd change on it is that the only reason they had to call it private is that we have portals now. And so now there is public on portals. Originally, the MLS created this network for a public person to work with an agent to showcase listings that agents had with sellers. And that was the community. And that's what Robert's referencing, is that bringing back agent to agent servicing of listings. And I think all of this could be solved, by the way, if NAR stepped in potentially and said, all listings according to our rules and regs, if you read them, it's actually in there. It needs to be defined a little bit because portals got through the loophole. But it says that all listings need to display the brokerage, the agent, and the agent's contact information. That is who the seller hired to represent them. And I would argue that all websites, including ours and portals, need to prominently display the brokerage, the agent name, and their phone number.
Yeah. Well, I think the interesting thing here is it's almost two things. There's client choice, which I think is really critical. And Robert, I want you to talk about that. But I think, Thad, it's also about client confusion, because I don't think that clients are very clear on what is happening and sort of what's at stake for their home with some of the negative impacts that are on these portals. So Robert, talk to us about, client choice, because I know that that's a little bit of an argument that goes both ways. Zillow is fighting for their positioning on that, but we are really strong in what client choice looks like for us and our agents who are working as fiduciaries for their clients.
And so I believe sellers should have the right to choose when, where, and how they market their homes. Is their home, is not our home. I believe if I am a real estate agent, you're my seller, my fiduciary and statutory duty is to you, not to someone else's buyer. It's to you, not to Zillow. It's to you. And there are some conflicts, right? Days on market and price drop history is the killer of value. And if a seller doesn't want that on their listing, they should be able to not have on their listing. And so, I believe in choice and versus control. Ultimately, much of this is about seller choice versus platform control. Should sellers have the right to choose how they market their homes with their agent in the construct of the law, state law? Or should third-party platforms the seller did not hire have the right to ban agents for not using them?
Yeah. And I think, as a second part of that, and Thad, I want you to respond, is, there's client confusion. I think being in the industry, we are really clear as to what's happening. We're all watching the headlines. We're all reading the headlines, particularly here in Chicago, but across the country. And I think as agents, our agents starting to wake up right now and realize what's happening, and then what is their responsibility for, especially as we're coaching our agents, for clarity to the consumer, because I think it's an opportunity here for us to have them better understand what's happening to their properties.
It's so funny because I think this is a classic case where political strategy has moved into corporate strategy. And we know in politics, whatever party you're with, each party blames the other party for doing what they're actually doing. And we're watching and we're confused. Well, think about this a second. When Zillow uses the word transparency, there is no bigger culprit of transparency than Zillow. 97.8, and that's the lowest percentage when surveys have been taken, of consumers are confused when they hit the contact agent button and schedule a tour now button. That's almost 10 out of 10, meaning you have to find one person to actually know what they're doing, and it's probably an agent. So testing out the technology. So they are the least transparent brokerage, which they call themselves, in our industry, because they are confusing the seller to profit from the agent. And so what they've said is that in that same survey, almost 80% of consumers would understand if they put a big toggle on there that said, this is not the listing agent. All they would have to do is actually be transparent and say who you're clicking on is actually not who you think you're clicking on. If they actually were transparent, they would be out of business. So their entire revenue, future business plan and strategy, if I were to define their entire business strategy in one word, it would be 3 words: lack of transparency. How can I capitalize and build a business without being transparent to the consumer? So what agents are actually doing is the exact opposite, by the way. When agents are using the PLN or using a network to provide value for the market, the end consumer, if the end consumer says, you know what, we've got to move. I don't want my child to know we're moving. It's a sensitive time. We've had a death in the family. We who have sold homes have been in a number of situations that require not an amplification of a listing at all. And also, I would argue that the PLN statistically achieves a higher sales price in a shorter market time. If I were selling a home, the last place I would start listing my home is on a portal. Portals are kind of place that listings go and they last forever. But when you actually have a market that's generated by professionals, agents that are on the ground, you're creating the most efficient opportunity for a consumer to invest into with their agent, to promote their property, to achieve an outcome. And the PLN gives them an opportunity to test an aspirational price. It gives them an opportunity to create urgency around their listing. And there is not a customer out there that I've never received an email in from a seller that it says I was cheated by the PLN. Not in any case at all. It's and I would argue that the MLS and originally, and the service it provided by cooperative platform like the PLN is one thing that it's very hard to find an error in it. Going back, 75 years when we got the books, the biggest things when it went online and we were all able to see it and it brought efficiency. But the MLS and our network of cooperation has probably created the biggest consumer benefit through all of us competing with one another. Robert and I were heavy, and I would say to this day, we're competing against each other still to provide better value to our agents. I don't know if I know how not to compete against Robert. Anytime I look at him, I want to compete against him. So I can tell you, at least here in Chicago, we're still benefiting on our agents and our customers by our relationship. We might be friends, but we still like to beat one another,
Yeah, frenemies.
Yes.
It's a thing. Yes.
Yeah. Friends should always figure out how to way to make each other better. And you should be able to inspire all friends.
It's true. So going back to this, the PLN, everything that happened in Chicago with MRED pulling the feed from Zillow. CIH, our brands, many brands or many companies also were off of Zillow for a period of time. But we do know that there were a couple of companies that decided to directly feed to Zillow, even though MRED was really taking, in our opinion, collectively, I think, a strong stance on what we felt was best for agents and for consumers. Why do you think that some of these brokerages decided to direct feed? Robert, I'll start with you.
Well, look, the top 5 companies didn't do direct feeds. There's over 8,000 brokerages that are members of MRED, and only a few hundred gave direct feeds. And so the vast majority did not. And so, I think the real question is, why did people not? And I think the reason people didn't is Zillow operates under the illusion that they are essential to the home selling process. But Zillow doesn't sell homes, they sell leads. If Zillow did not exist, the exact same amount of homes would sell in Chicago. And the only reason Zillow exists is because of our listings. And so I think people recognize these different things for the most part. I mean, the evidence is in how many people did not give them the listings. People that did, I think one, they didn't realize that they were giving up their data forever. And now Zillow, which is an AI company, AI learns off data. That data, those companies' data is Zillow's. Just go
Yeah.
look at their terms of use. It is now Zillow's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I was just saying that's huge. I don't think they knew that, and I don't think their agents knew it. But more importantly, I don't
Thad,
think
do you think Zillow? Do you think Zillow didn't tell them that
I don't
they
think
would
Zillow
own the
told
data?
them, obviously, but I don't think
Interesting.
the agents would have told their customers. And I think
Transparency.
that's the
Yeah.
importance of the MLS. The MLS works for agents and customers. And so the protections the MLS did with their feed protected our sellers. And so when Zillow so friendly comes by and, hey, we can accommodate your feed, they're not protecting the consumer at the end of the day. And I think those brokerages, if they had the chance to change that decision, they would. But I would also argue that those agents and brokerages should have the right to do that. And that's what creates a competitive environment. And that's what defines value proposition. So if you look at the brokerages that chose to do it, their model is less service, meaning a cap model where the agents are relied upon to invest more in marketing and customer procurement and branding. And that's a good model. It succeeds in a lot of different markets and it should be there. But for them, when you say, okay, what is your greatest cost that the agents use to attract a customer? They would say, well, this one doesn't cost me any money. The agents can actually use this to differentiate themselves from companies that are aligned with the MLS. Let's give them a point of differentiation that costs us nothing. I think that was the mentality. Keller Williams obviously has an agreement with Zillow, so you knew they were going to be aligned. EXP doesn't, but I think that was more of their mentality, is that, hey, you know what, this costs us nothing and let our agents do the battle. I think that if we were all looking what's in the best interest of the consumer at the end of the day, I don't think anyone can say, besides 2% of the market, 2% of the leads here come from Zillow, okay? And a fraction of that, not even 1% of that, actually buy the home that they requested the agent on. Okay. And so Zillow trains those agents to take that lead and showcase them a number of different properties. So there is no seller benefit to Zillow. The consumer benefit are a lot of things that actually work against the seller. The listing that's given to the agent that MLS puts onto Zillow is actually used against that consumer, that seller. 50% of the buyers, 50% of the market are sellers. That seller does not want an amplification of the days on market. If you're selling a product, you don't have a sign next to it that rotates every day it's been unsold. That seller also does not want a suggestion that the price is less than what they're asking. How are we doing our fiduciary duty if we're putting them on a site where that site's suggesting their home is worth less than what we think it is? That site is not doing us justice when it's using an algorithm to tell you if it's a nice neighborhood to live in and walkable, if it's walkable to things. Well, a lot of times things that's has to do with one person's perception, if it's a train or a store or where they want to live. So many things, bottom line, long-winded short, Zillow was built for buyers to give buyers information and ammunition to provide lower prices on homes at the end of the day with the inventory given to them by the seller. So going to two things that are very important to me, fiduciary and transparency. We have a fiduciary responsibility to our sellers when we take that listing to achieve the highest price in the shortest amount of time under the conditions that are in the best interest of that seller. That's what seller choice is. Zillow works exactly against that to achieve profitability. And I will say, shame on me. Shame on all brokerages and agents that over the course of the time were fallen for Zillow's idea that give us your data, we'll give you your lead, and slowly but surely, they won't even let us, by the way. Here's how funky it is now. Zillow will not let me give them money to put my agent's name, face, and our brokerage on their listing. They won't allow us to do it. And we still give them the data through many MLSs. This is a wake-up call for agents across the country about our fiduciary responsibility to our sellers and putting them in the best interest and the best likelihood of success.
Yeah. I think I know over the last 2 weeks and so many conversations that I've had with agents, this gave them an opportunity to take a step back and realize their value in all of this, right? Because I think sometimes it was just on autopilot as far as, you had a certain process that you initiated in order to launch a listing. Many started in a, private environment and then moved it mainstream to the MLS if they didn't get an offer. But I think agents really took a pause and said, I need to be mindful of my role here, and that Zillow and some of these portals are only a very small portion of the whole value of what we're offering here. And so this, I think, was a great opportunity for them. So Robert, I know you see tons of challenges as opportunities. In your opinion, what's the outcome of this challenge? As we've seen in Chicago, but it's still sprinkling across the US right now for our companies and our agents. What are going to be some of these real opportunities that they're going to see?
I think the opportunity that is coming from the challenge is that in Zillow's effort to control how sellers sell homes and ban any seller and their agent if they market outside of Zillow, the Zillow ban, in that effort to do that, I think they are advertising to agents and to sellers that something's wrong. If you have to ban me to scare me to use you, because if you get banned as an agent, you're too scared to ever give a seller choice again to market outside of Zillow. If you have to ban me to use you, there's something wrong. Think about just if Google banned anyone that advertised outside of Google, or if Amazon banned anyone that had a private garage sale. That's what Zillow's doing. And so I think the opportunity is the harder that Zillow is trying to control us, the more that agents and brokerages are going to wake up and say something's wrong, and I want to find a way to be able to sell homes where Zillow isn't taking a 40% cut, hiding the listing agent's name, putting days on market, price drop history, listing goes in contract and out of contract, my seller looks harmed, a Zestimate less than the value of the house, the walk score, bike score. What is the walk? These aren't real scores. They just made these things up. The Zestimate is inaccurate, and so I've never seen as many agents finally see that these AI companies and Zillow are going to create more problems, not less, for them. And Zillow is just the first step. AI is taking our data, our clients' data, and they're finding ways to monetize it. A few weeks ago, all of our data for the first time went to Google. And I was like, how did our data get up on Google? I don't remember my seller giving that permission. Google, the company, now has the listing data. And we called an MLS, and MLS said that they sold the data to them. And they literally making money by selling our clients' data to Google. And so something's wrong. Majority of MLSs are working perfectly well, and increasingly so. But we need to find a way to be able to sell homes through other agents just directly. The simple question is, should an agent be allowed to take a listing and give it to another agent in an MLS, or all the agents in the MLS, without sending it to AI companies and to the public internet? I think they should be.
I agree.
Yeah. And I think it's going to be, Thad, you alluded to this earlier, but NAR, I really do hope that this is an opportunity for us to align with our association that, is here to help support and protect us and align with, this world is evolving. AI is here. Technology is here. It is not going away. And we don't want to step backwards as a result of this, but we want to be in a space where we can also make sure that we are doing right by the consumer, doing right by our agent base. So I'm really interested in seeing what the future looks like with NAR involved in it. I don't know either of you, your takes on that, but I think it's a real opportunity right now.
Yeah, I think NAR fuels all opportunity for consumers delivered by agents. And how the consumer experience is improved is through competition. And if all of us look at each other that we compete with on a daily basis, it's that competition that improves the consumer experience. And that's what NAR is behind. I know Robert is an incredible competitor. And I know the two of us competing against one another improves what we deliver to the agent and inevitably improves the customer experience. And I can tell you as a Chicagoan, somebody that's been a member of MRED since the day, my first license in 96 maybe, is that the MLS here is exceptional at what they do. Exceptional. The board, Rebecca Jensen, they are only interested in providing a platform for us to compete naturally, to improve the consumer experience, sorry to be redundant, but to also bring us opportunities so we can do that better. And that was the PLN, which was effectively, I know you guys love the MLS and everything it did before portals. Let's give it back to you. 10 years ago, when a lot of us were voicing, me heavily, I was very much voicing that Zillow was not in the best interest of the consumer, and they solved that problem. But Zillow very strategically incorporated Compass so they could find a villain that brokerage knows. And so that you could have people out there, individual brokerages and companies, fight against one another. When in all reality, all we have to do as brokerages, if we all say that in every single listing, we will promote the brokerage, the agent, and the agent's phone number on @properties.com, compass.com, zillow.com, sotheby's.com, whatever the brand is, betterhomesandgardens.com, we all do it. That is true transparency to the consumer. And the other thing that is so important is that there will always be multiple owned brokerages, independents, corporate, franchise, et cetera. And there is something that the consumer relies on that I would say is provided by our MLSs, and that's cooperation. None of us does deals without each other. And we might compete fiercely, which benefits the consumer, but we are still friends and we are still working in the best interest of the consumer, but we have to cooperate in order to get that done. Zillow is taking out cooperation and taking out transparency and trying to point the finger at Compass. I think it's really, really important for agents to pay attention, to read, and not fall for it, to really believe that Zillow is doing something for you. Zillow has never done anything for you for free. Never. If Zillow might give you a lead, it's going to cost you 40% of your commission. That's not possible. It's not possible to build a business on that. A small business maybe, but nobody can really build on that. And if you can close your eyes and imagine, if Zillow achieved its goal, which is to be the national MLS, if you close your eyes and you work at Zillow and your whole goal is to generate a return to your shareholders, what's the first thing you do? You require every listing to be on Zillow active for 5 days and not allowed it to the seller to sign a contract to make sure everybody in the world can have the opportunity to buy that house under the guise of transparency. Give me a break. I think it's foolish for them to think that we're so undereducated.
I'm glad you brought that up because Zillow does want to be the MLS. In New York, they became the MLS. In New York, the MLS was called Revenue RLS. They said, Zillow, you cannot be involved in deceptive marketing practices. Every state has that. They said you must put the agent's name top and center, not hidden below, but prominently put the agent's name and phone number. And when you say contact agent, you have to say contact a buyer agent, not the listing agent. So that was what went to Zillow, and Zillow said, you know what? I'm not going to take your data feed anymore. I'm going to go directly to agents. And so the agents gave all the listings directly to Zillow. It's a company called Strudy's they own here in New York. And what happened? The next year, Zillow started charging for lease rental listings $1 a day. The year after that, $2 a day. The year after that, $3. The year after that, $4. The year after $5. The year after $6. The year after $7. Now it's $8 a day. Just keep pushing. $8 a day for a lease rental listing. Now, what they're trying to do is create MLS power and apply the Zillow revenue model to it.
Mm-hmm. That's the best way for them to extract revenue from the transaction is to become the regulator. And it's very dangerous for a for-profit company to be the regulator of real estate brokerage. Very dangerous. I would argue it's the end of the consumer experience and the benefits the consumer get. I don't know how it would even work, but it would, if you closed your eyes and think, okay, Zillow's my MLS, and I'm speaking to Keller Williams, I'm speaking to EXP, I'm speaking to those agents that don't really understand that they are feeding the dog that's going to eat your lunch. And I fed that dog for a period of time. I'll fall on the sword. I made mistakes in the way that I provided my data to Zillow. But once I was educated and I understood and I realized, whoa, they're not on the side of transparency. They're not on the side of competition. They're on the side of replacing the MLS to effectively extract revenue from every aspect of the transaction to generate the greatest profit to their shareholders.
What they did is they got the listings for free. Remember, they didn't compete for them. Compete means they're going to offer you more. There's zero competition for the listings. If they had to compete, seller agents would say, I want the name back on, and you're going to compete for it. So there's no competition. They got it. And then they said, how am I going to attract buyers? And they put a bunch of negative insights. It's almost like, think about a periodical that has a bunch of negative headlines to attract people to it. Put negative days on market, price drop history, price status changes, walk score, bike score, crime score, weather score, climate score. And they put these insights on that hurt the sellers. And the seller, 45% of the homes last year had a price drop. They all look like damaged goods. That means that there are, and that came from the portals. It didn't come from brokerages. It came from the MLS. It came from portals who started putting the negative insights to attract the buyers. That means that last year, there are countless people who sold, people that are in their 80s, early 90s, that sold their last home, their retirement savings. And it is less because of the system that these portals created.
Yeah. I mean, I think this is a wake-up opportunity for our industry. I've got to be honest. And it is in our hands.
It might be the
agents.
last call. It's a wake-up opportunity, but honestly, it might be our last shot for MLSs to work with agents to enhance the consumer experience and make educated decisions. It's not our responsibility to grow Zillow's revenue. That's not my responsibility when I take a listing. My responsibility, we all know it, and anybody watching knows it. We can say it so easily because it's what we do on a daily basis as a fiduciary.
Yeah. I mean, I think this has been, and I was worried we were going to have nothing to talk about, gentlemen. I think this was, part one. I hope I'm going to have you back again of a very lively conversation. However, before we leave, Thad, my part of Corr Values. I've already done your rapid fire, but since I've got Robert here, I have to take the opportunity. Robert, in this part of my podcast, I do a little rapid fire with my guest star, just to learn a little bit more about you, maybe outside of your days at CIH, which are probably 9 a.m. to 10 p.m.
Yeah.
All right, let me ask you this. This is a fun one.
I was talking to Thad last night after 10, like 11:30, so definitely later than.
Probably both smoking a cigar if I got it right.
Well, his birthday is next Friday, and so I was thinking about going to Chicago.
You must have a good CRM.
But yours is next Sunday.
You guys, you're both
Geminis. You're both Geminis.
Business.
The funny thing is, I didn't know either of those things. My wife said, "What do you want to do?"
Thad missed my birthday.
Sorry.
That's okay. All right, this is for Robert, Thad. What was your first thought when you found that this little company called At Properties had slapped a big billboard on your Chicago office with a message that, shall we say, maybe it welcomed Compass to town?
Yes. So we launched in Chicago, Compass, and on our office, At Properties, I call it Thad, put a billboard on our office that, like, really a billboard. It's the entire office, and it said, "Don't take directions from a stranger," with one of our a sketch of one of our founding agents with a compass. And so, like, when I heard about that, look, I gotta say, it was a mixture of, I can't believe they did that, and I really respect them as competitors for doing that. Right? So it was a mix of emotions. But yeah, one of the greatest things about this moment of Compass International Holdings, CIH, all these great brands and these great CEOs working together with different brands, different cultures. The brands will never change. Their office cultures, different sales managers, but to work with such great entrepreneurs like Mike, Thad, like yourself, Amy. And we all get better together. It's incredible.
Yeah, I love it. It's been fun. All right, this is another cool thing. You ran a marathon in all 50 states. Thad, you can get cracking on that. Which state nearly broke you?
Oh my God, I remember it was in Missouri. It was snowing and ice all on the floor, probably half the time. And we ran around 4 times in the big circle in the streets outside. My uncle, who's from Louisiana, he was there, and The third time that we were going through and like we saw them, you know, in the kind of the place where you start and go around, he said, "Boy, they wouldn't treat farm animals that bad." And because we're all like swimming, literally, we're slipping the ball in, like we're like it is really really hard.
Yeah, I love it. That's so great. All right, going back a few years, before real estate, before investment banking, and before the White House, you were a DJ. What was one record you played that was guaranteed to get everyone on the dance floor?
Well, I was remember the '90s, right? But it
Love
was
the
it was
90s.
definitely one of my go-tos was "Sweet Dreams," right?
Ah.
Sweet dreams are made of this. He's
He's going to stick to DJing and not singing.
I know. I want a DJ party the next time you're in Chicago. I love it.
Yeah, that was good.
Oh my gosh. All right. We know you travel
Also,
a
there's a
ton.
song called "Push It" with Salt and Pepper.
Oh, yeah. He's good. Thad, we should have him DJ for our next party.
I think that's a good idea.
I'm liking it.
At Palooza, DJ
yes,
Robert Reffkin.
Exactly. Yes. All right. So you travel a ton, and I know you've got a lot of responsibilities. I find it pretty amazing that you always seem to make time for your family. I see you even dragging them to open houses sometimes on the weekends. But what's your advice for other entrepreneurs who are really trying to juggle work and family?
I think it'd be two things. One, don't feel guilty. Like guilt is just the killer of like happiness. Enjoy, and it's so easy to feel guilty in our profession because we're always thinking about work. That's what entrepreneurs do. My mom is a real estate agent. She's been an agent my entire life. She's always, always talking about work. I don't remember a time that I met with her where she has not talked real estate. I just don't remember one time. But she said at this Mother's Day event, her regret was feeling guilty. She always was worried when I was younger, would I be okay? Would I be okay? And look, I'm okay, right? So just get that guilt off and just try to be as present as you can and not be unhappy. But the other is work-life integration, not work-life balance. Work-life balance doesn't exist. It's just this. It's the kind of person who's like, I'm going to keep on working until this happens, until more and more and more. This work-life balance is not a thing. At least I haven't seen it, and maybe it is for someone else. But work-life integration is possible. And so my wife and my kids during spring breaks. Most years we travel to a market and we visit all the offices. So 2 years ago, we visited all the offices in California, 40 offices. But when we went to Disneyland and to Lake Tahoe, it was great. And then last year we went to Florida and went to Disney World. And we go to open houses every Sunday. Tonight we host Shabbat dinners. So tonight we have Shabbat dinner, where we have a bunch of great real estate agents from different brands. My mom's going to come, so I get to see my mom. I mean, how great is that? My mom works here in this office, and she comes to my Shabbat dinners, and so I get to see her. Like, what a gift. She's 80 years old, and it's amazing. And so, again, no guilt, work-life integration.
Integration, key word. All right, Thad, I'm going to integrate. Just kidding. All right, so last question, and this is, we're going to take you when you come back to Chicago, even if sometimes you like to share a meal instead of getting your own meal. I know that.
Yeah.
Favorite place to eat in Chicago?
So there is this, I don't remember the name, but there was by the way, I love your hot dogs. I love your hot dogs. But there was, maybe I just leave it there. I mean, the hot dogs, the Chicago hot dogs, even at the airport, put all the relish on and the onions, and I don't like the jalapenos. I don't like spicy. They don't make them like that anywhere else. And I think Dad told me he was giving a speech or something, and he's like, in Chicago where we founded the hot dog or something.
Yes, we invented
like
we invented and perfected the hot dog.
We invented and perfected the hot dog.
That's right.
But also there's a pizza. I don't remember the pizza, but I liked it so much that they sent it to my house in New York, like a frozen pizza.
Probably
like
Lou Malnati's.
Oh, Lou Malnati's? Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah, I like that as well. But
like
the hot
that
dogs, I think,
deep
more.
dish? Was it a deep dish?
Exactly. Chicago style.
Yeah. I love it.
That's fun.
Well, gentlemen, Robert, thank you for sharing some of the fun side and getting to know you a little bit more. Thad, always so fun to have you on. And thank you so much. This was a great conversation. I can only hope that maybe there will be another Corr Values with the two of you on it in the upcoming weeks or months as more happens in the industry. So thanks, gentlemen. Make it a great day. And for all of you out there, thanks so much for joining this episode of Corr Values.